Silver just crashed below $60 an ounce, and something unexpected happened. The phones started ringing. Big buyers, the ones who vanished months ago, they're back. One coin dealer says he's seeing purchases he hasn't seen in weeks. People who waited on the sidelines at $100, at $90, at $70, they're moving now, but why now? Why under $60? And what exactly are they buying that has dealers struggling to keep shelves stocked? Welcome back, friends, to Golden Crest Finance. If you've been with us for a while, you know we don't chase headlines. We dig into what's really happening in the precious metals market, so you can make informed decisions with confidence. Before we get started, we'd be honored if you'd consider subscribing. It helps us keep bringing you honest, grounded coverage you can trust. And we'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Drop it in the comments. We always enjoy hearing from you. For months, silver has been on a wild ride. Back in late January, the price hit a record high of $116 an ounce. At one point during that day, it even touched $120 before pulling back. It was one of the most dramatic moves silver had ever seen. But what goes up fast can come down fast too. Since that peak, silver has lost more than half its value. It tried to recover a few times. In February, it climbed back up to about $93. Then in May, it reached almost $88. But after that May high, the price kept sliding. Week after week, it moved lower and lower. Then came a moment that changed things. Silver dropped below $60 an ounce. For many people watching the market, $60 seemed to be an important number. It wasn't just a random price. According to dealers, it was a trigger point, a level where big buyers, who had been sitting back and waiting, suddenly decided to act. One coin dealer, speaking on a recent interview, explained exactly what happened in his shop. He said that once silver fell under $60, his store became very busy. Customers came in with excitement, not panic. They saw the lower price as an opportunity, not a problem. Very few people complained about the price drop. Instead, they started buying. What stood out most to the dealer was the return of his big buyers. These are customers who usually make large purchases, not small, everyday transactions. Many of these buyers had stepped away from the market entirely while silver was priced at $100, $90, $80, even $70. They simply waited, but once the price fell into the 50s, they came back and started buying again. The dealer described these large purchases in a simple way. Early in his career, when silver was only $15 an ounce, a $5,000 purchase felt huge. But today, that same amount doesn't go nearly as far. Now, he considers a purchase big when it reaches the mid-five-figure range, sometimes climbing into six figures, meaning $50,000 to $100,000. Several purchases like that happened in just 1 week. Why does this matter? Because it shows a clear pattern in how everyday investors think. Many people did not want to buy silver when it was near its highest point. They feared paying too much. But once the price fell, that fear turned into confidence. People felt safer buying at lower numbers, even though the market was still moving and nobody knew exactly where it would go next. The dealer also pointed out something important. Even though business was extremely busy, there wasn't a shortage of silver. In fact, getting silver from wholesalers was fairly easy. Premiums, the extra cost added on top of the metal's base price, were also low. For many buyers, this combination made the decision simple. Low spot price, low premium, easy availability. As the dealer put it, why wouldn't someone buy if they had the means to do so? This shift highlights a bigger story happening in the bullion world. Some buyers wait patiently on the sidelines, watching the price closely. They are not driven by panic. They are driven by patience and timing. When the right moment arrives, they move quickly and confidently. For viewers tracking the silver market, this moment offers an important lesson. Price drops are not always bad news. For some buyers, they represent exactly the opportunity they had been waiting for. To understand why silver buyers are acting the way they are, it helps to look at how dealers actually price their products. This is something many new investors don't fully understand, but it plays a big role in every purchase made in a coin shop. When someone buys or sells silver, the price isn't simply the spot price you see on a chart. Dealers add or subtract an amount called a spread. This spread covers their costs and allows them to stay in business. According to one dealer interviewed recently, his spreads on common items like 90% silver coins were running about $5 between his buy and sell price. On generic silver rounds and bars, the spread was also around $5. Fresh, brand new rounds usually cost slightly more than older ones. The dealer explained that silver pieces are often labeled as either fresh or secondary. Fresh items are brand new, never touched, and still look perfect. Secondary items have already passed through other hands. They might show fingerprints, light scratches, or toning from age. Most of the silver that comes into a typical shop falls into this secondary category, since people are often selling pieces they've held for years. Government-issued coins, like silver eagles, work a little differently. The dealer mentioned that he had recently changed his prices, moving his buying price to $2 under spot, while his selling price sat at $4 over spot. That created a $6 spread on those specific coins. When compared to the spot price of silver today, that spread works out to roughly 10%, which the dealer said is fairly normal for the industry right now. Interestingly, this percentage hasn't changed much over the years. Even when silver was only $20 an ounce, spreads were often $1 or $2, which also worked out to about 7 to 10%. The dollar amount looks bigger today simply because the price of silver itself is much higher. Not every dealer works with the same numbers, though. Some shops that move large amounts of silver quickly can offer tighter spreads, sometimes closer to 5%. Other shops, especially smaller ones that don't sell as much volume, may need wider spreads to stay profitable, sometimes 20% or more. In some extreme cases, spreads have been reported as high as 30%, which most people in the industry consider far too high for the average buyer or seller. Gold, by comparison, works differently. Instead of dollar amounts, gold spreads are usually based on percentages, and those percentages tend to be much smaller, often just 1 or 2%. Since gold is priced so much higher per ounce, even a small percentage can still represent meaningful profit for a dealer. As for supply, the picture right now appears stable. Wholesale availability remains strong, according to dealers tracking the market. One supplier mentioned briefly running low on certain products during a particularly busy stretch, but was still able to fulfill orders by sourcing material through other channels. This shows that while demand has picked up, the overall supply chain for silver has not broken down. In fact, some wholesalers reported buying so much silver from smaller shops that they had extra inventory to sell directly to refineries. This suggests that selling activity, not just buying, has also picked up in certain areas, though buying still appears to be outpacing it in many cases. For everyday viewers, understanding these details matters. Knowing how spreads work, why premiums shift, and how supply chains function can help anyone make smarter decisions when buying or selling silver, instead of simply reacting to headlines or price swings. The return of big silver buyers under $60 raises an important question for everyday investors. What does this pattern actually mean for the wider market? For many smaller investors, watching large buyers step back into the market can feel reassuring. It suggests that experienced participants, people who often have more market knowledge and larger budgets, see value at these lower price levels. When seasoned buyers act with confidence rather than fear, it can encourage others to look at silver differently, not as a falling asset to avoid, but as an opportunity worth considering. At the same time, this situation highlights a common challenge that almost every investor faces: timing. Many people who avoided silver at $100, $90, or even $70 were trying to protect themselves from buying at a high point. That instinct is understandable. Nobody wants to feel like they overpaid. But the dealer interviewed pointed out something worth noting. Those same people could have sold their silver near the peak for $105 or $110, yet many held on, hoping for even more. Now, with prices much lower, some of those same individuals are choosing to sell simply because the recent drop made them uncomfortable. This pattern reflects a very human reaction that happens in many markets, not just silver. People often fear missing out when prices are rising, and then fear losing more value when prices are falling. The dealer described this as a kind of back-and-forth emotional response, where decisions are sometimes driven more by feeling than by clear analysis. From an economic standpoint, this renewed buying activity also has practical effects on local businesses, especially smaller coin shops. When big buyers return, dealers see increased sales, which can help offset slower periods when prices were higher and fewer people wanted to commit. It also affects relationships between local shops and their wholesalers. As demand shifts, dealers need to communicate clearly with suppliers to make sure they have enough inventory on hand without overcommitting financially. There's also a broader implication for how supply and demand interact in the bullion market. When many smaller dealers across our region experience increased buying at the same time, it can create temporary pressure on wholesale supply chains. Wholesalers may need to source additional material from larger distributors to keep up. While this hasn't caused major shortages so far, it does show how interconnected these local and national markets really are. It's also worth noting different perspectives within the community. Some investors view any price drop as a long-term buying opportunity, focusing on the idea that silver has historically been used as a store of value over time. Others remain more cautious, preferring to wait and see how prices behave before making large purchases. Both approaches are valid, and neither should be viewed as right or wrong. They simply reflect different risk tolerances and financial goals. For sellers, the current environment presents its own set of considerations. Someone holding silver they no longer wish to keep may feel pressure to sell quickly if they believe prices could fall further. Others may choose to wait, believing the market could stabilize or even recover. These decisions are deeply personal and depend on each individual's financial situation and comfort level with uncertainty. What this moment really shows is that the silver market, like many financial markets, is shaped as much by human behavior as it is by simple supply and demand numbers. Price levels alone don't tell the whole story. Confidence, patience, and timing all play significant roles in how people choose to act. So where does silver go from here? That's the question on everyone's mind, and honestly, nobody has a perfect answer. Even the dealer interviewed about this topic admitted he doesn't try to predict where the spot price will land next. He pointed out that silver is still much higher than it was a year ago, and the overall global picture hasn't changed dramatically in that time. That alone suggests there could still be room for prices to move lower. At the same time, he mentioned the possibility of what's sometimes called a dead cat bounce, a moment where the price hits a bottom and then spikes back up fairly quickly. He said he wouldn't be shocked if silver dropped further into the 50s or even lower, but he also wouldn't be surprised if it bounced back towards $65 or $70 within a short period of time. The truth is, nobody knows for certain, and that uncertainty is exactly what makes this market so closely watched right now. This brings up a good question for viewers to think about. If silver dropped even further, say into the 40s, would more buyers rush in the way they did under $60? Based on what's already happened, it seems likely. Many people seem to be waiting for specific price levels before deciding to act, almost like checkpoints along the way. $60 was one of those checkpoints. $70 was another, just a couple of weeks before that. It raises the question of what the next checkpoint might be, and how many buyers are simply waiting for the next trigger point. For everyday viewers trying to make sense of all this, a few simple steps can help. First, it's useful to track the spot price regularly, rather than reacting only to sudden headlines. Second, understanding how dealer spreads work. The difference between buying and selling prices can help avoid confusion when comparing offers from different shops. Third, comparing multiple dealers before making a large purchase or sale is generally a smart approach, since spreads and premiums can vary quite a bit from one shop to another. It's also worth remembering that decisions around buying or selling silver are deeply personal. What works for one investor may not work for another. Some people focus on long-term holding, treating silver as a way to protect value over many years. Others focus more on short-term price movements, trying to take advantage of dips and swings. Neither approach is automatically better. It depends on individual goals, patience, and comfort with uncertainty. Looking ahead, the key things to watch will be how wholesale supply levels respond if buying continues to increase, whether premiums start rising due to higher demand, and how spot prices behave over the coming weeks. These factors together will likely shape the next chapter of this story. Before wrapping up, here's a question worth sitting with. If silver dropped even lower from here, would you see that as a warning sign or as an opportunity worth considering? There's no wrong answer, only what makes sense for your own situation. That's the story for today. Silver remains one of the most closely watched markets out there, full of patience, timing, and human emotion all playing their part. Golden Crest Finance will continue tracking these developments closely, bringing clear and honest updates as the situation unfolds. Thank you for spending this time today. If this video helped bring some clarity to what's happening in the silver market, consider sharing it with someone who might find it useful too. Until next time, stay informed, stay patient, and take care.